So glad you could join us. As always, we are joined by Greg Engert, beer director for the Neighborhood Restaurant Group, which includes such places as Columbia Firehouse and Old Town, also Rustico, 2 locations, Alexandria and Ballston. What's on tap this week?
So this week, I always like to kind of keep us abreast of what's new in the market. And also I like to make sure that we get you some hoppy beers from time to time. So
you're a good man.
This is MIssion Brewery out of San Diego, California. What's interesting here, this is something that I'm really fascinated with because, we have Birch Barley and Church Key in D.C. We have Blue Jacket coming up in D.C. We have a number of other businesses on the way in the district, but most of our restaurants are in Northern Virginia. And while they are so close together, the kinds of beers that are available and even the distribution laws are so different that from time to time, you get a lot of differences between what's available where. And you'd, of course, imagine, and you'd be right, that D.C. has more styles and kinds of beer available than Northern Virginia. But what I always love to point out are when you see this reversed, and kind of surprisingly. So there are certain breweries that you can only get in Northern Virginia and Alexandria and Arlington that I can sell at Rustico, but I don't have in D.C. at Birch Barley Church Key, like Terrapin or Left Hand. That said, over time, there's been some breweries that I've only been able to get in Northern Virginia that have eventually come into D.C. Most recently, that was Blue Mountain Brewery from Afton, Virginia. Right. I used to sell them all the time only in Northern Virginia. Now I've got them here at Church Key. And then Mission is up next. So Mission's been in Northern Virginia for probably over a year now, making great beer. So I'm pretty familiar with them. But I'm excited for D.C. to kind of see what's going on in Maryland as well, because that's where it's available today. So Mission Brewing started out originally as a small little place in downtown San Diego, right by where the original Mission was that set up the city. Junipero Serra's father, Junipero Serra's Mission, was way back when. But in 2007, it was built as a much bigger place out by the baseball stadium, Petco Park. And unsurprisingly, they make phenomenal West Coast style IPAs and things like that. But they also make some other styles that you wouldn't maybe expect from a Southern California brewery. Brewers that are known for making big, bold hoppy beers like Stone or like Green Flash or something like that. Well, Mission has those, but then they also have a beautiful Kolsch blonde ale. They have a Hefeweizen that's wonderful, and then they have their kind of expected and delicious hoppy beer. So this is Mission IPA, bronze medal winner at the Great American Beer Fest in 2007, and 6.8%. If you look at the color, it's exactly what you'd expect, kind of pale golden straw-ish color, which tells us this is a West Coast style IPA. West Coast style IPAs tend to be aggressively bitter. They tend to have way less malt sweetness. They tend to be very floral, piney, and citric in the nose. Green Flash West Coast IPA is a prime example of that. There's many others. East Coast styles tend to have more malt character, so they're not quite as intensely bitter. They're a little bit more balanced. These are beers like 60 and 90 Minute from Dogfish Head or Victory Hop Devil. And actually, a lot of Scandinavian brewers that are brewing their versions of American IPAs and Imperial IPAs are doing it more in the balanced East Coast style, which is interesting. But this is definitely more West Coast, and I think you'll get that when we taste it.
Not overpowering in the nose, but swirl it around a bit,
and it comes
alive a little more.
It's got excellent bone dry bitterness to it,
Yeah, it's not overpowering.
No.
You don't get that hop slap in the face, but it's delicious.
It's there, and it's lingering. It's not astringent, but it's definitely drying. Really great.
A little more of cereal taste in the finish.
That comes through.
A bit.
And that's where the malt kind of comes back, and it's got a little bit of a grainy dryness to go along with the hop character. So really good. This is hopped primarily with classic American hops from the Pacific Northwest. Cascade, which is what we know so well from like Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. Cascade giving it this kind of floral kick in the nose, definitely a little bit of lemon. And then Centennial, probably made most famous by Bell's Two Hearted Ale. It's the only hop used in that beer. Coming through with a little bit more of sweet fruit and even more kind of flowery floral arrangements.
I love talking about hops, especially Pacific Northwest, since I'm from Seattle. It makes me feel like I'm at home. Cascade, Chinook, Centennial.
Well, that's why, Washington State actually produces, I think 77% of the American hop crop comes from Yakima Valley in Washington State.
No wonder I was born there.
It's a big one.
So since this doesn't punch you in the face so hard with the hops, which I love it when beers do that, but that makes it very difficult to pair them with food.
Right.
Is this a little easier to pair with?
It is.
Pair food with?
Well, it is and it isn't. Because honestly, the bitterness is still there.
Yeah.
I like sometimes thinking more about those East Coast styles when I'm thinking about pairing because they do have more. While this is not uber dry and bitter, it definitely I wouldn't call it malty. So when you have more malt character, even if it's bitter, you kind of get a bittersweet quality. Thinking like 60 Minute can be really great for that. But to your point, yes, this can work with some things that you might be a little bit afraid of. Definitely like some beef dishes would work out really nicely. If you want, obviously, your burgers, dogs, great baseball park kind of beer. Something with a little bit of richness, but it doesn't have to be overwhelmingly big. I think this could even go with like fried chicken, for instance, because you have that big kind of fried intensity on the exterior will kind of blanket it down a little bit, and that cereal quality you talked about, that mild sweetness is great with the fried chicken batter.
Maybe might go well too with fried clams, fried oysters. Because that
Po' boys.
Seafood taste wouldn't overpower.
No, not at all. I think that would be really good. And it could capitalize on some of those floral, fruity notes in the nose.
I think that's really worth a try. You mentioned the Great American Beer Festival, which may just happen.
Yeah.
Is that something you would recommend people try if they can?
You
just had Snallygaster last week, and if people missed that, they're definitely going to want to hit it again next year.
Yeah. Great American Beer Festival is amazing, and I think it's definitely, if you haven't been, you should go at least once, because it's a spectacle. They have amazing seminars going on. You can meet all the brewers. You can get them to sign your books and stuff. It's a really amazing thing what they do. And Denver as a city hosts it beautifully every year. That said, it is a lot. It's intense. It's kind of like, not as intense as Oktoberfest, but almost similar to that. But they do a really great job of handling how many people are there. And you really do have an opportunity to taste just hundreds and hundreds of beers you've never had. And the other thing that's cool about it is it's a full weekend. So you can get multiple passes and actually taste through a lot more of the beers than you would at a single day event.
Maybe you go for a few hours in a morning session, then do a little road trip to one of the many, many breweries around Denver, Colorado Springs.
Yeah, you have Boulder, Fort Collins, everything is right there. So you'll definitely have plenty to do. Plus, Denver's a great city. They have great food there, up and coming food scene. So it's a fun place to visit. And if you haven't been, the one thing you have to be kind of careful of is since it's so high up, a mile high, the lack of oxygen allows at first for the alcohol to kind of hit you a little bit more quickly. So whether that might be a good thing, I don't know, but you have to watch your intake and kind of get used to it at first. But that is one thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, you don't want to spend the majority of your time
sleeping
in the hotel room.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. If you got a question for Greg, send us an email. It's beeroftheweek@WTOP.com. Greg, we appreciate it as always. Everyone, please do always drink responsibly, and be sure to bring your thirst next time for another Beer of the Week.